Dictina Winigans. Dennis. Mitten down Mr. Randall, Panjman Penair.
Man Habal McLeod. Guns Cross.
Dictina Winigans. Hackathon Meetings Dina Otter. Dennis.
Mr. Socket. Good morning. Perhaps we're all mad here.
Minda.
I must be in a foreign country. Well, here goes Minda.
Mitten Darthies, Panjman Penair.
Panjman. I wonder what that is. Have you any apples?
Fallow, Tom Fallow.
Thank you. Miraz. What else do I want? Butter.
Mammon.
Mark bread.
Barrow.
Mark cheese.
Kems.
Mark and cake. Mark Purga. Trakisha Pnuit lemon. On tasing round balls. Tazen. Purga.
Inna Genstel Imma Fallow. Mammon. Tazen. Kes. Barrow.
Grass. Splaniu. Lemon Dugenis. I've only been in Cornwall for 2 days and I can speak Cornish.
Dugenis. Lemon Frisian Things Going West Joe.
Dugenis.
I suppose so.
Well, now be alright.
Now,
Yeah.
off you go then.
Thank
I suppose
you.
I'll put it into my timetable.
He doesn't look very ill. He hasn't got a temperature. He doesn't feel hot at all. Should we play hide and seek? Yeah, there's no hide around here. There's a hide and seek right up the top. Yeah, we might fall into one right up there. You're a coward, you'll fall over, aren't you? No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I am not. Yes, you are. No, I am not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You could slow it down. Let's try slow. Who's got things? Let's try It's a minute that roll now. You cut down, isn't it? Yeah. Do you want to start a new one? Who wants to plant the seed? There, we've got nothing to worry about. A new one will grow in its place.
Come on then, we better all go home and have dinner.
Yeah.
The lady with the lantern. The waves rolled up and into the bay. It was a dark night and no ship was afloat. It was no wonder, for none would dare go afloat. They had all seen the storm which was brewing over St. Ives. That is, all except one. An old sailor, a young boy and a woman sat on a bench after evening mass.
Well, hi there, young Jimmy lad. I didn't see you at evening mass. Oh no, I don't go to mass. It's not my time. Where were you then? Oh, I had to get out of the stuffiness of the dad's pub. It's so stuffy in there, you won't believe it. How's your family? Oh, not too bad. My sister's got rickets. Rickets? Yeah. Oh no, I haven't got it. I don't stay nowhere near her. It's going to be a sad night. A sad, sad night. Look, the lady with the lantern is out. Sad night? What do you mean?
Hast thou not heard of the lady with the lantern?
No, never.
Looks as if the heavens are going to open. I think I'd better go.
Right, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. I'll tell you the story. In the year, I can't remember when it was, but there were lots of wrecks around the coast. It was a sad time.
Yes, and what else? It can't be the end.
Well, there were many storms, followed by more storms, and each storm was worse than the last. And a large ship came out of the mist.
Time to cast that net yet, Skipper?
Yes, ready when you are. Stay nearer to the rocks.
Time passed and they were near the rocks.
Skipper?
Yes.
I know you said to go down the rocks, but aren't we too near?
Yes, look, don't you think we ought to turn?
I agree. You've got to turn around. Quick, call in the net. Right, we've still net this. We've caught nothing.
The ship's room's got no hope. Luckily, a lifeboat was already being drawn through some ties by horses.
Get below next to us. We've got no reason to get in this door. Quick.
There was no time for the lady to get below deck, because the lifeboat had arrived. The lady was swung across to the lifeboat by a rope. When she was halfway across, she fainted, and the child slipped from her arms into the cunning sea below. She reached it safely, but when hearing of her child's death, she died. Some time later, there was another storm over St. Ives. A lady was seen walking through the graveyard carrying a lantern.
Look.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so boring, isn't it? Yes, if only we had our haunting ground. Little people built around a modernised house on it. I just wish it would fall down and they die and something horrible would happen. Yeah, that's what. Oh, good ball. Why don't we just go and kill him? What, one by one?
Yeah.
But she kills first. Come on. Where do we go now? Hey, the door's locked though. We don't need doors, we ghosts. Oh yeah, sorry.
Look, you're really waking up time. I think I want to go.
Yeah, okay.
Stop it. Oh, just kill him. I'll put a spell. He's waking up.
Look, come on. What to do? He's alive though. You can do it. Check out the stars though. It's not that television.
Yeah.
Stuff at school.
That's on Grandad grew up on, isn't it? Hey, what's that? Yeah, what? Grandad, quick. Grandad. Get a twist. Get that family, anything. Right? Oh no. The pulse. Stop. Grandad.
Well, could my granddad's fallen over. We're at the Moor House on Bodmin Moor. Yeah, right.
Oh, Grandad. Oh, yeah, so quick. Let's take them off then. Oh no. Better get Gran something to come with. Cup of tea, cup of tea. Hey, sis. Hey, Gran must have got the grill out. Oh look. I was knocking the door, but in my pocket, someone might want it. Yes?
Hello, I'm the police officer from station.
Oh, come
Well, do you know exactly what time was it when he fell down?
It was only about half an hour ago.
Yes, well, what was your family's decision?
Oh yes, I've been up to it. But he's normally really lively, he's sort of fast. Who's this?
Excuse me, Mum.
Okay. Yeah. If they know that we've got the real, we'll be in big trouble. Let's hide it.
They might, yeah, well, you keep it in your pocket. They're looking at later.
Hello. No, let's put it away.
Oh, my God,
What are they called?
well, from the ambulance man there, he told me that he's had a report from the hospital. He said that he was using live in the morning. But when he found him, he said that he was like doped up. He had,
Dope?
Yeah, does he take sleeping pills?
No.
Well, that is well, is your grandmother in?
Yeah, she's asleep.
Oh, well, she's asleep. I'll come back later.
Okay.
Well, I'll be back later on then, okay? Right.
Oh, lucky you didn't ask about that work. What we got? Car goes to...
Oh, Doris.
Oh.
She always gets covered. Never getting in.
Hey, we get all the money.
Oh, well. I'm not going to get the money.
And a house. Hey, we get that as well.
We sell that.
And jewellery. Oh, Gran gets the jewellery, but if she dies, we get it. It's not bad.
I'll go get you some breakfast.
Yeah. To see if you died, I'd get the lot.
Slowly, take it slowly. Do you know what? If you killed him, you can have everything, couldn't you?
Everything.
Yeah, the money and the house.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yes, that's enough.
Yes.
Kill him. Kill him. Kill him.
Yeah. I'll go get you mine.
No. Oh. Big one.
I'll get the police, leave them on a false trail and then hello, is that the inspector? I'm being murdered. My brother's been killed to the ground. Tell her straight away.
He said, but if this lady, I've just done something. If the police hadn't come here, I think we might have done it.
What?
If the police
Oh no.
I've decided they'll find out.
Let's stay right. Oh no, stay away. Stay away. No, that's my brother. He's a prank, so you know my brother. No. Okay.
How's it falling? Hemi Gwaribian, Jan Skol Hele, Gwest German.
Mitten da, Mistress Pascal. Take your anger in to he.
You, the weir, my slivers young.
Eat the valley, have you? It's enough, the ballast down.
Can still come out there?
It's enough, there's still something.
Drop you.
He's passing it. It's enough, there's testing them. He practiced living, said Athos.
Has he fasting hit now? That.
Athos Ken.
Why are you like that?
A Tom Roy. Where's Hagel? Never Ken.
And your mirror.
Millions is everywhere gone now.
Tough talent slow.
Yes, Jugenis.
Jugenis most of Sango.
Millions is everywhere gone now.
These are my first.
Town in the centre of industrial Cornwall. Camden has always been a town of strong passions and violent action. The middle 19th century was no exception. Poverty, the decline of industry, particularly the tin mine, hunger and injustice, particularly by the police under Superintendent Stevens, sparked off a series of riots. The most violent one was the riot of 1873. Scene 1, Moore Street, Camden.
That's not fair, you have no proof I ain't guilty. The court will decide your fate.
No, I'll drink off to the cells.
This ain't fair, it's done nothing. It's a solicitor. Take that, you dirty thief alive. Come get you something, Gwen. Come on, I'm just about at it. Bloody coppers.
What was that noise?
Oh, nothing, Superintendent. That was just the prisoner trying to escape. So of course we had to stop her.
Scene 2, Local Magistrates Court.
Who's this, sir? And what's she done?
This woman, she calls herself Mrs. Bennet. Nick 15 quid, sir.
Where's the evidence?
My friend and I saw this woman go suspiciously up this great house on Mount Pleasant Road.
Well,
Well, so we checked her down and we found that she had £15 in her.
So we took her in.
Oh, is this true, Mrs. Bennet?
Might be, might not be.
Ah, you're being awkward. You'll be sent before the county court.
Scene 3, outside police station, Wall Street.
Look, lads, those bloody coppers beat up Mrs. Bennet.
Let's do it. Yeah, come on. We can't, lads. It's an ambush. That was all we need is arrest them. They've got thousands of it. What a pair of bloody cops. There's only 2 of them.
Quick, let's go back to first.
Yes, sir. Wow. I'm winning the graveyard. Yeah, mate. Hey, come back, come on. You're stuck behind me. What hell you doing? I'm clear, I'm home.
Atlas, shoot the carrot.
You were telling me so. At least the more of them got guns. Now shut up! Sorry, sir. Right, I'll get ready to get Campbell. I hope this car not last too long. I'll get under the sea. That's all you ever think about. Boom. Single gun, Put it here. Scene 5, the street, Campbell. Hey, look, it's Copper. Yeah. Shoot, round, long, ready, aim, scratch. Let's get the coppers, they must have tipped off the army. Let's get the bleeding cops. Look out, lads. They've sent miners again. They smuggled Mrs. Bennet away to Kent's Court at Bedroom. Go, we will fire. They're just bluffing. Okay, fire at will. Scene 6, the county court withdrew.
Order! Mrs. Bennet, could you step forward, please? You're accused of breaking into a house in Campbell and stealing £15. How do you plead?
Not guilty, and that is true.
Who is to represent the police with the prosecuting evidence?
That's me, sir. The evidence is that me and another police constable saw this woman come out of the house suspicious like. So we went up to her and seen that she had £15 on her.
I see. Is that all the evidence?
I think so, don't you, sir?
Yeah, that's about it.
Then I see no reason why this woman should be detained any longer. You're free to go, Mrs. Bennet.
About time too.
As to the riots, I think all the charges should be dropped and the Bowden brothers freed.
I don't like that idea.
But if you don't like it, we'll call back Superintendent Miller. He was fair and popular around here.
It's alright by me. Good luck to the blatter. I resign.
Court dismissed.
And so ends one of the last episodes of Campbell's history. While there was one other art later in the century, there was less violence and time and again came more peaceful times. Satan, we have come. Come to us, Satan. Come. 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 Satan, we have come. Come to us, Satan. Bring on the sacrifice. No! No! What do you want with me? Blood, my pretty blood. You fool! Do you think she will come if you take her? No, you must run. Lie her down. No! Tie her. Now I feed you. Satan's blood. Blood from the saint. Bring on the knife. Sharpen it. No. Stop struggling, girl. You cannot get away. Yes! Can. Satan, Lord of the underworld, we bring you a new wife. Take this sacrifice and drain its mind from the claws of God. Yeah! We must leave Satan's king new wife. Ha 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 ha! Ha ha ha! Ah, which was God. Untie her before Satan puts his soul. We must try to move the stone to kill the evil ones. You are budged. Oh, I'll try this stick. She's moving the stone! No! No! Satan, help me! No, come back, come back!
Right, could you keep your packets still again, please? This is Skull Penless in Drocklands, Penryn. Houston School in the Penryn murder.
Can you quarry bean, gan skull hellet, Dropland Penryn? Ni Let's go streaking together. Can you and Dad? Not Dad, that's not Dad. No, that's just Dad. Jared, Aristus and Penna. Penna is sad. And the album's in his square. The arguments gangs on mariners. Lucy's arguments louder than me. They vicky boy for summer. My minute near another. Me I can be all the arguments. Living doll hella. This dancer. Can I colour now? Mia, Basso, how are you? Johnny Lemon. Green Adam Beast. Can you pedal a ladder down brother? An hour now, rather than go me, go me.
Have you heard about all the changes that the Edward has ordered to be made in our church?
All images are to be removed. No, that must not happen. We will not allow it.
I've heard that the lovely pictures on the walls are going to be whitewashed.
I can't believe it. Is it true? Is it true? No more festivals or lovely church. No candles. No palms on Palm Sunday.
They say there's going to be a new prayer book too, in a new language called English.
English? We don't want none of that there new prayer book. We want to say the Lord's Prayer in our own Cornish tongue.
No, we won't stand for these changes. No.
We don't want this newfangled religion.
No. Down with the newfangled religion. Down with the newfangled religion. Down with the newfangled religion. Let's go into the church and pray to our images that our church shall survive.
Meanwhile, at St. Kevin, an hundred of men meet to make plans to save the church at Helston. Among them, Martin Jeffrey, a priest of St. Kevin.
Martin Jeffrey, priest of St. Kevin. William Kilter from Constantine.
John Kilter from Constantine.
Pascal Trevian.
Brothers, we've met together today to make plans to save our church at Helston. Our prayer book, our statues, and our stained glass windows. Let's have a protest march into Helston.
We'll get as many men as we can, Martin.
I'll go to Constantine and look for some tough ones.
Right, we'll go to St. Kevin and round up the men there.
We'll march into Helston to stop the king's man.
Body is he called? He'd better beware or he'll be dead body.
Dead body! Dead body! Dead!
This is the scene in the church in Helston. William Body is at work.
We'll have to smash these stained glass windows. These will have to go. We'll need 24 new English prayer books. We'll need 2 barrels of whitewash to cover these walls. Where's Body? Where's Body?
You've gone too far! Ah! The king's man's body!
He's dead! He's dead!
He's dead!
Have you heard the news?
What news?
You know William Body, the king's man, he came down here to destroy the lovely things in our church. Looks like they've gone and destroyed him. It's an awful sight in the village. Don't go up there.
Oh, it's certainly going to have a look. Martin Jeffrey, priest of St. Kevin, has been hanged and hacked into quarters at Smithfield in London. William Kilter and Pascoe Trevian, the said killers, have been hanged and their bodies hacked into quarters at Launson, where 9 men altogether have been put to death. At Tavistock in Devon, 1 quarter of a body has been set up to warn the men of Devon not to rebel, as the Cornish men have done. Aye, aye! Aye, aye! Aye, aye! We have to stop him. We have to stop him like we planned last night. Body, body. We have to stop him, even though we had to fight. Body, body. We have to stop him. We have to stop him like we planned. Our church will stay the same. Our statues will remain, even though we had to fight. Yay!
Mr. Gill and myself, I'm John Police, have been here all morning listening and enjoying what we have seen out here. And now it comes to our job to comment on what we have seen and heard this morning. Now I want to make this quite clear from the very start that this is not a competition. We're not going to give first, second, third and fourth, because there are many reasons for this. Not that we are against competition as such, of course not. But with such a wide variety of choices that were given by the organisers of the competition, and the opportunity for people to interpret over a very wide range all the ideas that they've had, there was no opportunity or no reason to say A was better than B. It's not like a music festival where there are set pieces and there are reasons for judging how one song or one piece of music has been sung or played better than another. This is a morning or a day of sharing our interest in our country's background and history, and possibly for the future as well. It's an opportunity for all of us who are concerned with our country to come together and show each other various aspects of our work. Now, my colleague Michael has the tremendous ability and aptitude and privilege of being a Cornish scholar. I, unfortunately, although I'm a Cornishman, born and bred, I'm not Cornish speaking, much to my shame. I hope to rectify that. So I'm going to ask Michael to talk to you particularly about the Cornish speaking aspect, and I'll come in at the end with those of us who are unable to speak our own language. Michael.
Thank you. Well, listen to we all. Cys Lywena, the Bopol and Fleches, Nepre, Rik, Gil and Gwario Mir, Oma Heddiw. Martha Splaniu, the blue is Canuic, Ceusis in Ta, Gans Fleches, in Castribianza and Carma. And Mea Garsa Cys Lywena, all in Fleches, Hag, Aga, Duskajorian, Nepre, Rik, Agaduski. What I generally said then was that it's wonderful to hear Cornish spoken in play. I was going to say competitions, but of course it's not really a competition. In play days of this sort, and I think it's excellent that the children and the teachers have spent a lot of time and effort in learning these plays, and that each time they do it, I'm sure they'll feel more relaxed in their Cornish and more able to understand exactly what they're talking about. It is obviously a very hard thing to do at first because it's completely strange to speak in a language you're not aware of, but I think we soon get used to it, and already now there are lots of people, hundreds of people, who are speaking Cornish with comparative ease. And I think this just proves the need which we have for more Cornish teaching in our schools. And I don't just mean the Cornish language, but all sorts of aspects of the history and heritage of our country. And obviously, all of you here, it might sound as if I'm preaching to the converted a bit, because all the children and teachers here are very aware of Cornish history, because that's come out in the plays this morning. But how many other schools in Cornwall are aware? How many children in Cornwall are aware of the inventor of the first railway engine, for example? Or the magnificent benevolence and example of somebody like Passmore Edwards, who came from just a few miles away from here and made such a great contribution to the history of Britain and to the lives of people all over Britain. Anyway, I'll just briefly comment now on the three very good plays that we have had today. The first one, Skull Cambron in Spacety. This was very good, and I like the idea of introducing somebody coming in speaking English in that play. I thought that was a very good idea because it gave the right sort of atmosphere for comparing the two and for one to find out about the other, and a very funny ending as well. The girl, I thought she spoke very well. I don't know, is she here now? Can't recognise, we've seen so many. Yes, right. She spoke very well, and it was a very amusing ending The only criticism I would make is that it would help, I think, I've put down here, perhaps the customers could bring in some different comments each time they come in. For example, a sentence about the weather, or how's your auntie who's poorly, or something like that. It just seemed to be just buying and selling, and there wasn't really anything different until the very end. But, however, it was a very amusing play. The second one was the Dropland Penryn. No, sorry, Skull Henleys, that's right, Aud Penassa. No, I've just written 2 words for this play. Would the Skull Henleys people like to put their hands up so I can see where they are? Aud Penassa. That's right, yes, you introduced it, didn't you? Where are the customers? Oh, there they are. Right, fine. I've just written 2 words for this, and that was Pierce Glad. It was very good, very amusing, and those of us here who could understand Cornish were laughing our heads off about it. It was very good indeed. And I noticed that the comments I made about the first play were rectified by yours, because you did say things like the weather, and you expressed how cold it was, and you had some very funny colloquial expressions in, which I thought were very good. So that was excellent. And the third one was the Dropland Penryn, again by Skull Henleys. Could they put their hands up, please? Yes? Well, this again was very good. It was short and to the point. And I noticed that, apart from the 2 ones about going into a shop today, I noticed all the plays have been pretty gory, haven't they? They all seem to like that sort of presentation. You certainly didn't waste any time getting to the main point of the play, but unfortunately, you didn't speak up clearly enough, I didn't think. So, in the future, when you do this play again, as I'm sure you will, do please try to speak louder and more clearly, so people can hear that the Cornish you've taken so much time to learn. And you're speaking it very naturally. You all spoke naturally and well, but it just wasn't quite loud enough. And I think that perhaps applies to all the plays in the Cornish section. I know perhaps people are rather nervous speaking in Cornish when they aren't used to it, but do please try to speak louder next time. I think that applies to everybody. But I thought they were all very, very good, and I think it's excellent to have people doing plays of this sort, and it's better to have 50 or 100 children with some basic knowledge of Cornish than 2 or 3 adults studying the languages as a merely academic exercise. So I think you've all done very well. Thank you very much.
Now, I would like to reinforce what Mr. Gill said about this question of audibility. It applies both to the English and to the Cornish sections, I'm sure. You have taken a great deal of time to prepare your work, and it's a great pity sometimes that you don't share that preparation with others. So one of the points I think you'll need to go think about in the future is, are other people able to understand? In other words, am I able to communicate? Because that's what the whole thing is all about. So bear that in mind. There were instances this morning in all the plays, or most of them anyway, where we couldn't possibly hear what was going on, which was a pity, because I'm sure what there was being said was enjoyable and would have added to our interest. Now, I have to run through very quickly, because there are a number of plays to talk about, and I would not like to leave any particular group out. I'm not going to mention individual players as such, because there won't be time, except when I want them to make a point. Can I pinch something from the Cornish-speaking ones? This question of a sort of Cornish version of Open All Hours, which was lovely. The shops. I learnt something a lot about the names of things, but a basic problem when you've got a table on the stage, if you put somebody behind you here like that, and you've got customers coming in, you immediately present the customers with a problem of projecting their voices to the wall and out again. In other words, you enforce the customers to have their backs to the audience in this particular case. Whereas if you put it on one side, and I go back to Open All Hours, if you know that program on television, you'll notice that their counter is always at the side, and you can see the camera's placed so that you can see both the shopkeeper and the customers. So if you tilt your counter at one side, you at least give the opportunity of most people being able to see one customer, possibly two, and certainly the shopkeeper. It's a small point, but when you're using roster box and you have to play to an audience, when you're not playing to an audience, it doesn't matter tuppence, because everybody's working as it were in the round. But when you've got an audience to play to and you have to get your message across to them, make sure that you place your blocks or your furniture, whatever it is, so that you don't force some of the players to have their backs to the audience for very long. Now, the second one we saw, incidentally, it's always a problem with the first group on, and if I can add something to the first group, to open the morning, and it is cold in here, at least I find it cold, and I'm sure they must have done. So they did a very good job indeed to break the ice, literally. Now we got with the loss of a tree, one of the Penair groups, with this huge family all over the place. And it was designed not for an audience, but for people to be all around us. So that's why we got up and had a look round. We call a promenade play, if you like, with people all over the place. And it was interesting to see a lot of good work going on here and a lot of good work going on there. Lots of involvement by people. People understood what they were doing. And a nice group on this side of children whose diction was very good. In other words, I could hear what they were saying. Telephone conversation from one to the other, very good. I thought that I was a bit baffled by Mum. She answered the door to the chap who wanted to cut down the tree, then immediately went back to bed. And I thought, what, were all these kids having breakfast? My dear life, I should be worried stiff. But I gathered that she was playing another part then, and so it was my mistake, not hers. Good. The accident, remember when the accident in the tree, now that was an important part of the story, and I think we should have made a bit more of that so that we were more upset as it was. There was a bit of a scuffle going on, and we suddenly found there was somebody on the floor. And the finish of the play, when the replanting, now that I think is even more important than the cutting down of the tree. If the tree has to come down because he's got a disease, okay, let's cut it down, but let's make sure we plant something in its place. So the planting of it, if you do this again, try and build that planting up of the new tree, the new life, up to make it more important. Then we came down to the Ballad of Wilton Groom. This, I understand, was an original ballad written by the pupils in this particular group, and I do commend them for it. It was very, very good indeed. And the ballad itself is an exciting piece of writing. And my only suggestion I would make to them is that if they study that ballad even more, the opportunities that it would give you for really dramatic reading of it and understanding of it are tremendous. It's a super ballad, well written, with lots of atmospheric writing in it. Now, you therefore don't repeat it as though it was the da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, because there's life in it. There's tremendous atmosphere, there's excitement, there's tension, there's pathos, and you need to bring that out when you're reading it, which would make it so much more dramatic when you are acting it out here. I thought this was a very original, a superb piece of writing, and ballads particularly are a very good source of playmaking because they tell stories, and they tell dramatic stories, and that's what excitement's all about. So well done. My point again is, when you're reading any poetry, anything at all, try and find as many opportunities for making it exciting and dramatic as you can, because people will enjoy it. I like the bit of dialect that came out of this. Now, I want to say a point about dialect, because I think there's a misunderstanding about it. Some dialect is not dialect, it's just bad English. But there is a true, real place for Cornish dialect, and long may it continue. And if you're going to use dialect, and you should use it in its place and its right time, don't be afraid of it. Use it. Be proud of it, because it is a characteristic, it's a national characteristic of our part of the world, same as it is in Scotland or Tyneside or Liverpool or whatever else. And it reflects a large portion of our life. So if you're going to use dialect, make sure it's good dialect and it's well and clearly spoken. And I was glad to hear some of it coming out in this particular one. Again, with the fourth play, the Penair Lady with the Lantern, I felt sorry for the old sailor with his pipe, only because the pipe is a useful thing. My mind's in the pocket there, but I suppose sailors are associated with pipe. But don't forget, pipe smokers, you do take it out of your mouth every now and then, and you don't have to keep it clenched between your teeth rigidly, because it does upset your speaking. You can't hear a word you're saying in the back because you've got your old pipe in your mouth. So take it out from time to time. You see, if you do take it out from time to time and put it in occasionally, people will notice that you've got a pipe. And this is the same thing with all drama, that if you do the same thing all the time, people get bored with it, and they don't, in that case, if they're bored, their attention goes away, and they don't like that, and that's no good for your story. When you are telling a story, and this applies to several of the plays, there was a storyteller in the particular sketch, and invariably she was sitting down, or he was sitting down, or standing up, one or the other. But I don't think ever did they alter their positions during the telling of the story. Now, if I stood here quite still and went, "Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about," and I'm going on all the time like this on one voice and all one level, and no one taking a bit of notice, and I stood straight to the line and perfectly still, and no one took any notice of me at all, you'd get bored to tears. Quite rightly. But I move around. Not because I'm cold, although I am cold, but because if anybody changes direction on the stage or changes their voice on the stage, people immediately think, what are you going to do next? And if they're wondering what he's going to do next, they're looking at him. Or if they say to themselves, I wonder what he's going to say next. They're listening to you. And that is precisely what you want them to do. You want them to watch you, and you want them, the audience, to listen to you. So you must make it easy for them by breaking up the monotony. So if you're telling a story on the stage, and you're sitting down, take the opportunity of finding a place where you can get up and move around in order to tell another part of the story, and that probably is the important part of the story. In the theatre, we call it pointing a line, underlining it, making it stand out so that at least people will listen to that bit. And where you have to tell a story, as I say, use that little gag to arouse interest. What have we got about the Lady with the Lantern? Yes, the death of the child, I think, in this particular case, needs that kind of attention being drawn to it. And if you stood up and changed your sitting position, it would have helped. The miming of the wreck, the ship, I like the crewman who said in a very English voice, "Skipper, I think we're getting a little closer to the rocks," which, if you interpreted that down at Penryn, they say, "Here, boy, where are you going?" Or something like that. So if you get a chance, ask your drama teacher to take you down to Penryn and have a look at a modern fishing boat, or an old fishing boat, come with that, because this is what this kind of work is all about. It's not learning words and learning a story, it's learning about people and what people do. And if you're going to do something about fishing, go and have a look at some fishermen, listen to them, talk to them, find out how they work. It all makes it part of understanding. Quickly on to the inheritance. I think one of the funniest lines I've heard this morning was from the ghost who said, somebody said, you wanted the door. We don't need doors, dear, we're ghosts. I said, what a fantastic thing to be, a ghost. You know, you don't need doors, you can go through anything you like. That was good, very good indeed. Poor Grandad, they nearly killed him when he was down here, and they were trying to find out what was wrong with him. If there wasn't anything wrong with him before they started, there certainly was at the end. They nearly pulled him to pieces, which is all right, fine. Enthusiasm, that's what it's all about. Police officer, in this case, was one of the problems you had again was facing upstage, and that I think contributed to the fact that I couldn't hear hardly a word you said, which was not completely your fault at all, because you were placed in that position where it was a difficult way to project your voice. Good clear voices from the ghost in this case, more projection from some of the boys, but a good story and a good use of space. And now again, let people know what you're saying. After the break, after the Cornish contribution to Penair School, we came on to the Camborne riots of 1873. Now, of course, Cameron people are always rioting. I mean, I speak as a truth man, so I knew I was there. What a splendid story! What a splendid story! And the costumes gave us a clear. Incidentally, congratulations to all the groups who made costumes for these particular plays this morning. They do help. They were in the main very good indeed, and it does make a lot of difference, particularly to an audience, to get them to understand who people are. I do congratulate them, all the people who use costumes. The policemen were tough, they still are pretty tough in Camborne. They aren't so bad in the truth, but they are in Camborne. They're a tough crowd, understandably so, I suppose, out there at that time, 1873. I like the magistrate's hat. I don't know where he got that hat from, but that was a nice sign of the magistrate's office. Apparently the county courts have the same kind of hat. Well, of course, they have the same magistrate, so I suppose that was fair enough. Fair enough, why not? That doesn't make a difference. What have I got here? The costumes, yes. The soldiers felt a bit sorry for them, because they were waiting for the sound effects to get in step, and only until they were almost off stage that they found the right pace to get in step with the sound effects. Good use of sound effects, and I thought, generally speaking, we could have had a lot more sound effects, particularly music this morning. Some of these plays are very atmospheric. And I think if you consult your musical friends, you could find some music which would help you create an atmosphere. So don't be afraid of using music. Anything that will help the audience understand where you are. The use of the drum in the last one was most effective. Very simple, but exactly right. Beautifully, obviously well timed, when the poor old chap was being quartered up or whatever it was. But just the simple drum was all that was required. And with the percussion instruments that are available today, you don't need to buy a record, you can create your own music. It's extraordinary what sounds you can produce with very simple pieces of equipment. So experiment with that. If you watch the music quiz, the inter-school music contest that you get on television these days, and notice the uses to which percussion instruments are put in creating atmospheres. They're an object lesson in themselves. Now then, the Camborne riots again. One of the things that probably held this thing up a bit was the continual introduction of someone coming on announcing. They announced that the person who did this, announced the particular scene, did it very well indeed. I'm not criticizing her at all. I'm really making the point that to stop the action every minute or so and someone to say this is where it takes place, is not always necessary, and it does hold up the proceedings. So see if you can get rid of that, or get rid of some of them, and try and put 3 or 4 of those scenes all in one, and avoid the use of someone coming on and telling us where it is. I was glad the county court was a lenient court. They're lenient these days, they tell me, but to get them all off was quite right. They should never have been there in the first place. Well done. That was a good piece of local history, true history, and Camborne would have been very proud of it. They haven't got much to be proud of in Camborne anyway, so they may as well be proud of something. Whoa, I shan't get out of here alive in a minute. No, you know what I mean. I'm only joking, really. Now then, the Witches on the Hill. We're nearly through. Only about 18 more to go, I think. Good costumes. Why didn't you use some music about this? You could have created so much atmosphere with a bit of weirdy old music, which would have helped, particularly as we got the bloodthirsty lot of these witches coming out at the end. I reckon those bloodthirsty witches came from Four Lanes. They're all bloodthirsty up there. You know Four Lanes people, do you? Oh, well, never mind. I'm interested to find out, perhaps someone will tell me at the end, what was the significance of moving the stone? Is it part of folklore that if you move the stone, you destroy the spell? It probably is, but I'm not well up. I'd be glad if someone would tell me. Bloodthirsty old lot, as I say they were. But, again, good costumes and some very good movements from the, I only call her the fairy because she was the good as opposed to the evil. And finally, oh yes, it is the last one, the Helston School with the murder of William's body. Now, we were excited about this before we started because they'd gone to a lot of trouble to dress the set, to make it look what it was supposed to be the church of the pre-Reformation period, 1548. And what all the remarks I said about clarity and projection do not apply to this particular group, because without exception they were crystal clear, and I commend them for that. I commend them not only for the principal characters, the town crier and so forth, who's got a very big future as a town crier, I imagine. They tell me it's a good profession. You go all over the place promoting, you could travel all over the world. There he is back there, promoting Helston. So, you know, think about it. It's well worth it. And anything that can do to promote Helston, my son, is good. It must be a good thing. So, but even the crowd reaction, the crowds in themselves were clear, full of character, and the Constantine men, though I live very close to Constantine, the Constantine men are like Four Lanes men, they're breed on their own. And it was good to see Constantine voices of men coming out with good projection. Did you notice too the way that they built up the tension of the crowd scene by this beginning of soft repetition of noises, the noises being repeated, and then gradually building in tension. Now that is what I mean by building up attention, by this change. It started off quietly and built up till the end. We knew, even if we couldn't see them, if this was a radio production, we would have known that here was an angry crowd beginning to build up their anger. And I commend them for that. A nice sense of the shape of the thing. The drum helped tremendously. I've mentioned them once before. And as a point of interest, but at the end, when they sang this song, the only person who didn't join in, quite rightly so, was the executioner. And he made his point. I don't know if it's him or her. Could have been one or the other. He made his point perfectly. Out of all the voices going on, of course the executioner couldn't have joined in that song. He represented the neutral point together, the final chop, if you like, literally. And it was a very good touch to put him where he was, and with all the singing going on, and his expressionless place. Good. Well, a very exciting piece of living history, well dressed and presented, and full of a lot of good characterization. As indeed the whole morning has been. It's been a morning of Cornwall of the past, brought to life and shared with a lot of friendly people. All that I have said about projection and so forth does not apply when you're working in your group, because you're working with friends in the classroom. If you're playing to an audience, remember those points, but whatever you do, don't stop digging back into our history and looking forward to our future for the inspiration of the work that you're doing, because you people will not only consolidate our past, but you'll also build our future. And I congratulate all those people who've been here this morning, because they've shown us that they're Cornish, and they've shown us that we're all darn proud to be Cornish. Thank you very much.
And they're all doing all sorts of plays about history and stories of their own area. So if you're not doing anything, do come back this afternoon to watch some of the junior schools. I'm sure they'll be well worth watching. The second thing is, before we give out certificates, before people go, I would like to thank now, while everybody's here, John Trelease and Mike Gill for coming and doing the watching and talking about the plays this morning. So could we thank them? I'd also like to thank Penair School through Mrs. Newby, who is here, and she's brought so many lovely plays from Penair School this morning for the use of the school. So Mrs. Newby could thank the school very much. The last thing about the certificates is that there will be one for each school as a reminder that you've taken part in the first Cornish Day of God, and there will also be a certificate on paper, because it doesn't cost as much, for teachers to collect afterwards, to take back to fill in your name so that you yourselves can have a certificate yourself to keep, so that you've got some reminder of this. There are two different certificates. One is in the Cornish language for the group who've acted in Cornish, and one is in English for the groups who've acted in English. So if teachers afterwards contact me, preferably with exact numbers, because we've got 5 primary schools and I'm not sure I've got enough students to say. So if possible, with exact numbers that you need for your schools afterwards. Larry Climo is one of the members of the Celtic Congress, one of the committee, and has very kindly agreed to present the certificates now. So I'll just call them out, hopefully in order. Skull Cambron in Spice Street. We have somebody coming to collect them, please. we'll give you a certificate if somebody in school can do this. Skull Henley's Own Moors Crenassa. Anyone left of that? Camborne School, Camborne Riots. Skull Henless, Drockland, Penryn. And finally, Huston School for the superb end of the plays, The Murder of William Body. Right, free squash for anyone who hasn't had it, or a bag of crisps, otherwise the morning's finished. Man microphone, there we go.
Shall I leave it?